the beginning of the 3rd century AD, surgery was enjoying a golden age. And complex cosmetic surgery was still being practiced throughout the Roman Empire. While Rome, the cultural and political capital, benefited most from these advances, Alexandria remained the seat of medical learning, even under Roman rule.
Alexandria had this tremendous, this golden period, if you like, of progress, of scientific, truly scientific discovery. It's fascinating.
And that science, all that learning, revolved around the great library with its 700,000 scrolls. Here was where the circumference of the Earth was measured, where the stars were plotted, where Herophilus recorded that the brain, not the heart, was the center of thought. But fast approaching was the end of both this golden age and the library itself. By the beginning of the 5th century, the scrolls had been deliberately burnt. Exactly who did it isn't clear, though most suspicion is cast on the early Christians who were violently opposed to pagan science. Today, near where the old library stood, there's a new one. Natasha has come to visit the $230 million Bibliotheca Alexandria, the largest library in Africa. It's a futuristic building, big enough to house 4 million books. As a center of research, it's designed to recapture the spirit of the ancient library, of which only a tiny fragment survives.
Of course, the ancient library of Alexandria contained hundreds of thousands of scrolls, but following the Great Fire, all of them were destroyed, unfortunately, except for this one papyrus. It's the only remaining papyrus from the ancient library of Alexandria. It's written in ancient Greek, and what we've deciphered is that it's actually an index of some of the scrolls which were present at that time in the library.
It is like many things in antiquity. The spotlight is on a certain place at a certain time, and then the spotlight goes out and it moves somewhere else. And so suddenly the spotlight goes out on Alexandria.
The end of the library coincided with the end of the Roman Empire, and of all things we call ancient, including ancient plastic surgery.
The problem with medicine after the fall of the Roman Empire is that the Roman Empire fell, if you like, because of a sort of decentralization. And so these long-distance networks, to a great extent, fell apart. There's a lack of central authority. Under those circumstances, things like medicine, the universality of it, also falls apart. That's not to say that medicine wasn't still practiced, but you no longer have that great centre.
And when the centre of medical knowledge went, losses rippled through the empire. Everywhere, great medical works disappeared, either destroyed or lost to time.
We shouldn't forget that despite the enormous wealth of medical literature that we have from antiquity and the enormous wealth of archaeological finds, that we only have a fragment, a tiny fragment of what was written. We only have a tiny fragment of what was buried by time. So we know very little, given what once was there.
Of Galen's 60 books, for instance, just 20 survive, and that many only because they were rescued by Arab physicians. Natasha wonders what other medical knowledge has been lost, perhaps forever.
There were numerous other anatomists, famous anatomists. There were numerous other people writing on pharmacology, on every branch of medicine. It so happens that Galen's works have survived, in part because he was translated on a massive scale into Arabic in the 9th century.
The Arabs, as they conquered, preserved some ancient texts, and it was through their translations that many great works survived. Yet the Arabs rarely practiced invasive surgery. As for the Western Christians, they abolished surgery in both knowledge and practice. It was pagan and it was a sin. So the end of the Great Library and of the Roman Empire is also the end of Natasha's journey through the past. But what will she do with what she's learned about ancient plastic surgery? She's back in London and back at work. Today she's operating alongside consultant plastic surgeon Martin Kelly. Kelly is a world specialist on facial reconstruction.
Morning, Roger. How are you?
Hi. Morning. Morning.
Neil Vandella, anaesthetist.
Hi, Neil.
Hi there, Stephen. How are you?
Very good.
You well?
Thanks. Yes, very good, thanks.
Looking very well.
Natasha and Kelly will be rebuilding this patient's nose, which has been partly amputated to cut out a cancerous growth.
You've had a tumour excised from here, and that tells us that you had a cancer of the skin, but also we know from looking at that under the microscope that the rest of the skin in this area from biopsy is not quite normal. And so what we're going to do today is remove the rest of that skin and rebuild that side of the nose using skin from the forehead and a few cartilage.
Natasha can reflect now on how much of today's medicine was initiated in antiquity.
A few weeks. With a skin graft on it, it tends to heal very quickly, and it seals it up.
The bedside manner, for example, is straight out of Hippocrates.
An infection in the area of surgery. This is common to any surgical procedure. Hopefully none at all.
No, good, good.
Except avoiding tripping over. But it shouldn't be too painful at all. I think you'll find that Dr. Randauer manages the slight discomfort you might have very effectively, and I don't think you'll find it
Expertise.
exactly.
We'll have a chat in a moment.
Not a difficult procedure to go through.